My sister-in-law plans to have a wedding at my house, and I'm not invited, but on her wedding day, the princess is surprised to see that I changed the lock and there will be no wedding. I'm 34 years old and have been following this subreddit for a long time. Lately, there's something in my life that I needed advice about. I've read many posts about sisters-in-law to see if anyone else has gone through my situation and how they've handled it. Well, I suppose my situation is unique, and I could really use some advice. This is about my sister-in-law, which is why I can't discuss it with my husband, the family complexities. So here's the situation. My 27-year-old sister-in-law is planning to have a wedding in the spring. She wants to host it at my house. Yes, that's right. It's not to brag, but I have a 4-bedroom house with a pool and a large garden. She is engaged to an Irish guy, so her family and relatives will need a place to stay when they come for the wedding. We have a spacious living room and a large backyard. She plans to have an outdoor wedding in the garden, followed by a dinner in the living room. This is how she envisions it. Now, the obvious question is, am I okay with this? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here asking for advice. Let me give you some context. I've been married to my husband for 8 years. We met in college and dated for about 4 or 5 years before we got married. He doesn't come from a wealthy family, but he's a hardworking, self-taught man. My father-in-law worked as a day laborer and my mother-in-law did occasional jobs. My husband has a younger sister who has been living with my in-laws. Keep in mind, she's 27 and still doesn't have a job. They not only provide her with food and shelter, but they also cater to her extravagant demands. And when I say extravagant, I mean beyond their means. Unlike my husband, who completed his master's degree, my sister-in-law dropped out of college. Her parents didn't even insist that she finish her education because she didn't need anyone to tell her what to do. She's inspired by this new age influencer who claims that a degree doesn't make you rich or successful. I find it strange because I was raised completely differently. Although my parents are fairly wealthy, they never gave us privileges. Yes, we went to a private school, call it luxury or whatever, but beyond that, my parents didn't do anything to further my career. When my brother and I were in high school, Dad told us we had to earn a scholarship or take out a student loan. He wasn't going to pay for our university. We used to hate him and thought he was stingy, but we studied hard and earned scholarships. Now that I'm older, I see the wisdom in his parenting. He made us self-sufficient, especially after seeing my sister-in-law. I'm convinced of how important the role of parents is in a person's life. When I got my first job right after college, I went wild partying and on vacations. But Dad sat me down and showed me some good properties. I was happy that he was finally letting go of some of his tight money, but that wasn't the case. He wanted me to buy the house on my own. He paid the down payment and explained the importance of owning my own home, and the sooner the better. He advised me to rent out half of it to help with the mortgage. I own this house today, which I'm glad about, seeing housing prices now. I think if I hadn't bought it, I wouldn't have been able to get such a spacious property at this price. As for my relationship with my in-laws, it has been more or less acceptable. We don't see each other that often, they live across the city, and I have a busy life. I still have a decent bond with my mother-in-law. We talk once a week. But I simply can't connect with my sister-in-law. We're on opposite poles. She doesn't like me because, during our early interactions, I tried to convince her to finish her education and get a job. She thinks I'm jealous of her because her parents take care of her, while mine made me live on my own. The worst part is that my in-laws say they're going through financial struggles, but they continue to support their 27-year-old daughter. My husband and I offered to help her get an office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed any interest. She's lazy, no doubt about it. But my in-laws should have pushed her to work. Although they're happy to support her, there are a couple of reasons why my sister-in-law wants to get married at my house. One reason, of course, is the space. She could have the wedding, lunch, and dinner all in one place, and even her guests could stay without needing to book a hotel. Another reason is that she can't afford to rent a venue. If it's not my house, she'll have to settle for a wedding at the town hall. She doesn't make money, and my in-laws don't have a fortune to spend on her wedding. My husband doesn't want to give an opinion on this because it's my house, and he wants me to make the decision regardless of what he thinks. That's my man, and that's why I love him so much. So, my problem boils down to this. Do you think I should let her use my house as the venue for her wedding? Underscore 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 underscore. Update 1. 2 days from now is the wedding, and today I found out that I'm not invited. The funny part is, the wedding is at my house. Let me pick up where I left off last time. Yes, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely concerned about it, but eventually I agreed. Now, I regret my decision. I'm furious. So please excuse me while I vent all my feelings. My sister-in-law is nothing but a woman who uses men for money in exchange for, well, you know what. She's not even that pretty, and don't get me started on her lack of intelligence. But as you know, once the lights go out, most men don't care about all that. She may be good at what she offers, which is why she's been able to hit the mark. That's what she calls her fiancé, the mark. Not only is she superficial, but she's also a liar. I found out that her Irish fiancé is doing quite well financially. He works as a banker, and even his family is wealthy. So, to impress them, she lied, saying that my house belonged to them. I've known about this lie for a while, but I didn't care because at the end of the day, it didn't affect me. When her fiancé proposed, she came to me and almost begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. As if that wasn't enough, my in-laws also came begging, saying that if I didn't agree, they might have to take out a loan to finance the wedding. I asked them why they couldn't finance it themselves, her and her fiancé. My in-laws said, traditionally, it's the bride's parents who pay for the wedding, and the Irish follow this tradition more than we do. I don't know how true that is, so please don't judge me for this. Those weren't my words. Also, my sister-in-law has already bragged to her fiancé and father-in-law about her big house that can host a wedding. Her stupidity made me laugh. I said, what if I don't host the wedding in my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before committing this with her fiancé? My in-laws nodded and asked me to safeguard their reputation. I told them I would, but that they should have done a better job raising their daughter. You see, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand that I say this for their own good. You know what happened next? They came to my house until I agreed to this. At one point, I thought, it's only 2 days, we'll be done with this. And yes, some people asked me in the last post if she offered to pay the rent. This all happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days ago, my sister-in-law arrived with my in-laws and 2 other men. I was at work and saw this on the camera I have installed inside. It has a motion sensor. I called her and asked what was going on. She said those guys were wedding planners here to visit the site and plan the wedding. So I asked her to be careful with my things, and she assured me she would. After paying my mortgage last year, I got rid of the tenants who occupied my 2 upstairs rooms. I took a leave from work to prepare 2 rooms for them. I hired a cleaner to help with the cleaning, since it's a huge house. Today, my sister-in-law showed up at 6 in the morning while we were still sleeping. She was leaving for her bachelorette party in the next city and was here to check if everything had been prepared properly. She was happy to see that I had prepared 2 rooms for them and rented a larger dining table for tonight's dinner. Then, she toured the house and said, okay, these 2 rooms are ready for my parents. Mom and Dad will take your room, and I will take the room with the dressing room. Wow, I'm so excited to show them my big house with all these fancy things. I can't wait to see their amazed expressions when they see it. I was confused. I mean, where do we fit in? The rest of the conversation went like this. Sorry, I'm confused. If your parents are taking our room, where are we supposed to go? She answered, well, I don't know. You could go to your parents' house, or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both can afford it, I'm sure. I replied, but why? Do we have to leave our own house? With a mocking tone, she said, because for them, it's my parents' house, remember? And you can't live here. It would be very weird for a married sibling and their spouse to live with my parents. I felt dizzy after that conversation. What the hell? So, you're going to act like this is your parents' house and you live here like a princess? I was already pretty angry. I put on a serious face and asked, so, according to your fairy tale, where are we supposed to live if your parents ask us? Oh, they won't ask. I mean, how would they, since you won't be here, right? And what about our things, our pictures? Who will know they belong to us? I'll tell them everything is mine. The only issue is the pictures in the hallway. We'll have to take them down before they arrive. I sighed and asked, so, even if I vacate the house to play along with your little facade, we'd still see them at your wedding, right? What if they ask us then? I asked this sarcastically, but her responses stunned me. No, there's a misunderstanding. They won't be attending the wedding or the family dinner at all. I was like, what the hell? She continued, I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited them to the wedding. My parents sent them an invitation. I felt very stupid for talking to her. I shouted my husband's name, who was sleeping peacefully. I shouted so loudly that he ran out of bed. Did you know we weren't invited to the wedding? It seemed like his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. Wedding? Whose wedding? Her wedding. We're not invited. Why? Your sister said she didn't send us an invitation, so how could we assume we were invited? It took him a few minutes and some repetitions to understand what had just happened. He was horrified that we weren't invited to the wedding being held in our own house. My sister-in-law said, well, if it bothers you so much, you can attend. And you can probably say your wife is sick and you have to skip it. I asked her what her original reason was to justify our absence. The woman had the audacity to laugh in my face and said, oh, you won't believe it. I told them my parents don't want them there because they're too toxic. I was like, wow, what else can I expect from you? I went angrily to my room without saying anything. It was pointless to waste time talking to her. My husband followed me and assured me it was still my decision if I wanted to withdraw my consent. At this point, I was too angry to think clearly. I needed to calm down to make a rational decision. That's why I sat down to update here, thinking it might help, and it did. I feel much lighter now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give in to the princess's demands. I don't know what to do now, but I'm definitely not leaving my house to take part in her web of lies. Whatever happens, I'll update this thread. You can count on me. Underscore 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 underscore. Update 2. Hi guys, thanks for engaging with my posts. Yes, everyone was right in saying that the spoiled princess lives in a world of illusions. First, let me answer some common questions from the comments. How could my sister-in-law access my house in my absence? After I agreed to let her use it for the wedding, I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered with cameras, so I felt okay sharing the spare key. How could my sister-in-law's fiancé believe her lies that the house was hers and not even visit it? I'm not sure. He's been dating her for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him over to give him a tour while I was working. After writing this update, I discussed my thoughts with my husband. Even though he was on my side, saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be canceled and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, let's talk to your parents. We went to their house and told them about my sister-in-law's plan to exclude us from the wedding. Apparently, they already knew and seemed to be okay with it. My husband lost it and said, did you know she was excluding us from the wedding and were okay with it? My mother-in-law weakly replied, we thought you were okay with it too. None of you asked us why we hadn't received an invitation. At this point, I questioned whether we were wrong for assuming we were invited to the wedding because it was in our house. My husband and I looked at each other in shock. My husband yelled, do you realize there won't be a wedding if she backs out? What if we tell her in-laws the truth? My mother-in-law panicked and begged us not to do that. My father-in-law kindly asked if it would be okay for us to attend the wedding if my sister-in-law sent us an invitation now. I remained silent and didn't respond because I was furious. My father-in-law asked my mother-in-law to call my sister-in-law and ask her to send us the invitation immediately and apologize. My mother-in-law hesitated to call her, but my father-in-law looked at her with red eyes. My mother-in-law called her nervously, and my father-in-law told her to put the phone on speaker. My sister-in-law answered the call and scolded my mother-in-law for bothering her during her spa session. My mother-in-law explained that it was urgent and that my father-in-law wanted to invite my husband and me to the wedding. She got angry and said, "There's no way I'm inviting that witch. She thinks she's too clever." My mother-in-law tried to stop her in the middle of the conversation and whispered, "They're here with us." But the princess was too busy complaining. She said, "If she knows my in-laws, she will overshadow me. I want to look the most beautiful on my wedding day. Besides, you know how she always talks about all sorts of things, work, careers, investments, and blah blah blah, to grab everyone's attention. I don't want that at my wedding. The focus should be on me. If she's nearby, she'll make me look like a fool. So no, she's not invited to my wedding." Then she hung up. I screamed back, "You sound stupid because you're stupid," and ran out of the house. When my husband got up to leave, my in-laws asked him to calm me down, promising they would talk to my sister-in-law to get an apology. Apologize to me, I thought. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law sent me a text message saying I should take down our pictures from the hallway and move out of the house. She added, "After overseeing preparations tomorrow, my fiancé and his family will arrive at the venue at 10 a.m. So, get out before then, but make sure to leave my parents there before the wedding planners arrive. I'll be staying at my friend's house after the bachelorette party and head directly to the venue from there. I'll arrive as a bride." "Sure, Your Highness. I'll plan a perfect wedding for you." When we got home, it was already late in the afternoon. I called a locksmith and changed the locks of the house. Later that night, my husband called my father-in-law and told him that my sister-in-law was no longer welcome in our house, so they better find another location. He tried calling my sister-in-law, but she was busy getting drunk at her bachelorette party. My father-in-law called back in a panic, asking what to do. My husband suggested that if he wanted to save his reputation, he should call their guests and cancel the invitations, giving some valid reason. There was no way the wedding was going to happen at the scheduled date and location. The night was exciting, just imagining the expressions on my sister-in-law's face when the truth came out. Around 6 a.m., the day of the wedding dinner, the doorbell rang. It was the wedding planner, ready to start preparations. I told her that this was my house and there was no wedding happening here. She was confused and said that my sister-in-law and her fiancé had reserved the space for that day. I told her to call them because my house was no longer available. An hour later, my sister-in-law's fiancé came to the door. I answered, and he asked if my sister-in-law was home because she wasn't answering her phone. I told him she wasn't here, and this wasn't her house. He said there must have been some confusion. "I'm her fiancé, and we have a wedding today at this house." "I guess you're her sister-in-law. I saw your photos in the hallway the other day." I smiled and said, "You're right, I am her sister-in-law. But there's more to the story I'm going to tell you. Let's start with the basics. This is my house, and I live here. My sister-in-law and my in-laws live across the city in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's not happening here anymore. I've changed my mind." I'm not sure what happened next, but around 9 a.m., the princess came banging on my door. I didn't answer. She called my husband, asking what was going on, why I had kicked the wedding planner out. He said that our house was no longer available and that she should find another place for the wedding. She screamed and hit the door, demanding we open it. I opened the window and yelled, "If you knock on my door again, you could end up in jail on your wedding day." She insulted us, calling us names for ruining her life. She left after the neighbors threatened to call the police. I blocked her number, but she bombarded my husband's phone with voice messages, calling him names for not defending his sister. I asked him if he was upset, and he said he was, but that she had brought it upon herself. She can't assume everything will be handed to her on a silver platter. She was ungrateful and took us for granted. She told her fiancé that this was her house and planned the wedding here without even asking for permission. On top of that, she excludes us from the wedding and calls me a witch. What does she expect in return? My in-laws didn't take it well. They blamed me for tarnishing the family reputation. This made me question their values, especially since they seemed fine with their daughter excluding us from the wedding, even though it was taking place in my house. As for the wedding, it was canceled that day. My sister-in-law and my in-laws went to see the fiancé and asked if he could wait a week to organize another location. I heard her fiancé call them liars in front of everyone and say he was canceling the wedding. He said he would have to reconsider his relationship with her. God knows what will happen now, but I'm glad to be out of this drama. I have a life to live and a career to focus on. God bless her and her lies. Update 3. Well, it's been a few days since what would have been my sister-in-law's wedding at my house. As you know, it didn't happen here, and it didn't happen anywhere else because, in the end, the fiancé decided to cancel everything after seeing the lies of his ex-fiancée. I don't blame him. We're talking about a person who would go to such lengths with lies, so we could expect more lies in the future. Anyway, the important thing now is everyone's reaction after all the plans went to waste. Starting with my sister-in-law, who has been crying ever since this all happened. She obviously blames me for everything, which is ridiculous because I wasn't the one who lied to everyone. Her ex came by the other day, apologized for everything, and told me all this. I reassured him there was no need to apologize, as he had nothing to do with this. I still apologized to him, as I should have told him about this earlier. To be honest, it's not like we had a relationship or had much contact before. I didn't even have his phone number or know his name to look him up on social media. But I felt bad for him, and I apologized. As for my in-laws, they continue to call my husband to speak badly of me, also saying things about him, telling him he should have done something and not just let me control him. He's thinking about blocking them if this continues and has already stopped answering their calls because he's fed up with them. But that's between him and his parents, so I'm not getting involved in that. Update 4. It's been a week since my last update, and I was hoping the previous one would be the last, because I don't have any more time to waste on their nonsense. I had already done enough for her, but she had to show up at our house and make a scene. It was Saturday morning, and I was at home having breakfast when she knocked on the door. I could tell it was her because the knock was followed by hysterical screaming. She sounded like she was possessed, the way she was screaming, like something out of a horror movie. According to her, she wanted to hit me because I had ruined her wedding and relationship by being selfish and a witch. My husband wasn't home because he had gone to play tennis with his friend. She was screaming at the top of her lungs and banging on the door while I was drinking my coffee. A neighbor heard everything and called the police. The neighbor also came to my door to make sure I was okay and told my sister-in-law that the police were on the way. Finally, she left, but the funny part is that she ran away like a thief or something because she didn't have a car and had come here by Uber. She didn't have time to order another one before the police arrived. Then I opened the door and spoke with my neighbor. When I was done, the police arrived and I explained what happened, how she had threatened to hit me. My neighbor is a witness, and the cameras also recorded it. The police went to my in-laws' house to look for her. Now it's late, and my in-laws have called my husband to tell him what I did and shouted him some more, but my husband hung up on them and blocked them. I know many of you will feel disappointed because we don't know what happened with my sister-in-law since my in-laws were the only ones who could tell us. But both of us feel that we've had enough of everyone. Whether she ends up in jail or not, we don't know. But at least we are done with that family.